Hi, everyone, and welcome into Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Happy Friday. Happy beginning of May. I know we've never started a May quite like this. I know, at least in the Kansas City area, if that's where you're watching, the weather is absolutely gorgeous today. So looking forward to getting outside for a little bit, even if it's not out and about like we would prefer to be, or over at Kauffman Stadium, or I don't even know where. Let's see if I can figure it out where the Royals were supposed to be today. I've sort of lost track at this point. Royals were supposed to have been at home, so we would have been at Kauffman Stadium hosting Detroit. We'll see when that happens. I know everybody keeps asking me when baseball is starting. This is not one of those I know, but if I tell you I have to kill you type of things, I don't know. But if you want a gut feeling on it, I'm thinking late June, early July. That's what a lot of the reports have been lately. My advice to everyone, if anyone's interested, is that take all the reports that are coming out as ideas. Whit Merrifield, actually, the Royals All-Star, told me that on a baseball show I do the other day, the Big Fly Baseball Show. Take them all as ideas, not as this is the final plan. They're ideas that are being kicked around, but it's seeming more and more likely that late June, early July is the case. Either way, I think this show will keep on going because the interest has been phenomenal. There's so many stories, leadership to be told here in the area, and I'm really enjoying this. So we've got the weekly podcast, Rounding the Bases, that comes out on Spotify and iTunes and all the places you find your podcast. That comes out every Monday, and then this is every day of the week, usually at noon, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, which is Periscope, or vice versa, and then posting it later on after the fact on LinkedIn. So a lot of opportunities to get the links. Want to thank my friends over at KC Cattle Company. Just talked to their owner over there the other day, Patrick Montgomery, former Army Ranger. It's veteran owned and operated. They're up in Weston. Wagyu beef, they deliver to all 50 states. It's unbelievable. You can take my word or just try it, but it's a staple here in the Goldberg house and will be for a long time. So appreciate their support. And as I mentioned, that of Enterprise Bank and Trust. Been really excited to get on the show a friend of mine and someone that I've had the chance to get to know in the business world since I started my journey with speaking and podcasting and all of that. Dan Stalp, who is an expert in the sales word, Sandler training. And I know that whenever I see Dan, I learn something. When I'm over at Sandler, I learn something. I also meet really great people. So, Dan, I know that there's a lot to talk about today because we are, by the way, I mean, this is live TV, and I gotta get my light on here. I realized that I hadn't done that. So, sometimes that happens. Better. Is that better? Had the outside light coming in. Sometimes you have to be able to look out that window a little bit, but kind of save your sanity. So, Dan, let's talk a little bit about how life has changed. It's true for all of us. And by the way, you don't need to be in sales for that to be the case. But I believe, and you know better than me, that sales is much more than just sales. It's all about people. And
correct.
So much of what's going on right now is about people and helping others. First and foremost, how are you doing?
I am doing well. When people ask me, I say fair to partly cloudy. So there's a lot of fair skies out there, but occasionally some clouds roll in. But, I could probably argue I would have said that 6 weeks ago, too. So I'm blessed. Thank you. Yeah. How about you?
I'm doing well. You know what I have found, and I know everybody has their different varying degrees of how they're processing this and how they're dealing with this. I've always been a glass half full type of guy. I've always been a high energy guy. That doesn't mean I don't have bad moments, and I've had some of them. But I find the easiest way to get through this is to push forward, to have energy, to find purpose, because it'd be very easy right now to view this sort of, for those that are out of work, and I am, as a vacation or as a, wait. And I think this is an opportunity right now. It might not be the opportunity we expected.
Yeah, a word that I, of all places, read on Facebook. I'm not on there that much, but a friend of mine's sister-in-law, I think, called it a pause. And I thought, that is the best word I have heard so far, because you hear a lot of, pandemic, crisis, all this. But I think if you just view it as a pause, it allows our mind to think and get more creative than this all sucks, this is horrible, and when's this going to end? Because, first of all, it doesn't all suck. I mean, there's been for my own personal pause this last 6 weeks, I've had tremendous just had time to really think through some things, like what's important to me, what's not important to me, what did I think I couldn't live without, what can I live without. So that just is a word that I've really attached to, is that this is a pause. It's not the end, and it's going to be quite a beginning as we start to transition out of this.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. A pause, and I would just take it a step further to say pause to the way things were.
Right.
But then another P word. I keep finding all these P words.
I know. Me too.
Pivot is the one that I think really applies right now. But I've been rattling off all these P words: purpose, positivity. I'll still do this, and it's a part of my virtual speech right now. First and foremost, it all comes down to people.
Mm-hmm.
And it always did.
It always
by
did.
the way, sometimes we get in our own way. And by the way, not all people work well together or mesh well together. You can't connect with everyone, or maybe you could try. But that's where I kind of want to go to start this, because I'll give you my personal side of it. The first couple days that this all goes down, middle of March, and then kind of right around St. Patrick's Day, baseball's postponed, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh crap, what do I do? I get paid by the game. So, as a guy that last got a regular paycheck in the first week of October, you start getting to the end of March and you're ready for that cycle to start again.
Mm-hmm.
It was gone. Yeah. I don't say that in any way looking for sympathy. I say it, one, because I think I'm probably going through what a lot of other people are going through.
People can relate to that.
Yeah, I think so. But and then the other thing is that my default was, I'm going to reach out to a bunch of people that I know that are, really influential and smart and great people, and just see if they might be able to help. And what I realized within about 48 hours, and nobody was rude about it, but was they're dealing with stuff too. Mm-hmm. Everyone's dealing with stuff. So what I've heard a lot of people say is this is not the time to sell. And I agree with that, although I'll push back to say that maybe it's a time to sell differently. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, first of all, to just say it's not a time to sell, I guess you could argue maybe even before the pandemic that it was, you don't really need to sell. It's more about helping people discover that they need something and being there. So, you could argue selling someone something they don't need and want would be unethical, right? Of course, not talking to them about something they need and want, and you're in professional selling, is also for some people unethical. So there's two sides to this. Mm-hmm. So, when you mention just like now is not the time, I've noticed that there's kind of a 20-60-20 as it relates to how people respond to this pandemic. 20% are actually inspired. Mm-hmm. And so what they're doing is they're doing more, they're giving back. I think a lot of the people that are in the healthcare, not all, but when you see some of these reports, I do like that there's more positive news. It's about a bad situation, but it's positive news about how some of these people are really putting their lives on hold to cater to people that are sick with the pandemic. But they were inspired, like this is their moment, and not in a selfish way, but I was meant to do this. I am skilled at this. I'm very good at this, and people need this. And so, are they trying to sell themselves in the hospitals? No, they're needed. And the reality of it is, so are many of us. It might just be different. And then the bigger chunk is kind of that 60%. And they're just kind of, not early adopters, not inspired, just, trying to maintain routines and, and not let it get to them, but not necessarily inspired. And it goes up and down. And then the last 20% were the ones that immediately said, this isn't a time for selling. And I'm sorry if there's a manager or owner listening to this. I'm just giving you truth, buddy. I mean, that is not the way to go. People still need things. Now, what's happened is you need to pivot. Let's use your P. People that didn't need me 6 weeks ago are now calling me. Mm-hmm. People who needed me or maybe wanted me maybe can't have me anymore. But if I just react to what's happening, well, then I'm just reacting. But there are people that need things, whether it's what I'm doing, what you're doing, everyone, it's shifted. And so there's opportunities to expand, there's opportunities to attain. But if I think I'm not supposed to be doing anything, that's not going to happen.
It's fascinating. I think that last 20 that just flat out says is not the time to sell my question to them would be, then what are you doing right now? Because there has to be a pivot. Again, I'm not agreeing with them, but if it's not time to sell, I'll get back when this is over. That's a mistake. I do believe, and what I have learned, and I think you tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is probably one of the keys to sales anyway, is it's not about me. It's about what can I do to help you.
That's right.
I mean, that was the big shift for me though, after those first 2 days of, oh my gosh, who can I get to help me? And then I turned it around and said, wait a minute, what are the skills that I have that could add value to others?
Exactly.
And instead of counting up how much money I need to make or what this is worth and getting hung up on that, it's what can I do to assist? What can I do to help you out right now? And now suddenly you're starting conversations with people and you're trying to offer value, and they may or may not take you up on it, but at least you open the door to conversation in a non-threatening way.
Well, and that gets back to the comment, if I have something that people need and want and I don't tell them about it, I can't tell everybody, well, then that's on some line unethical too. So, there's the health pandemic that's occurring throughout the world, by the way, and then there's an emotional health pandemic. And so, what you and I do kind of lends itself more to the emotional health, helping people, think through things. That doesn't mean that, I haven't grieved. That doesn't mean that I've been like, oh my gosh, but it's a matter of, but then being able to reframe it, because I think you had John McGraw on here maybe a week or two ago, and unfortunately I didn't get to listen to it, but because he's an awesome person, speaker. But one of the things that, instead of just labeling things, and maybe you already talked about this, as good or bad, to just label it as it just is. And I saw this really good, it was like a Chinese proverb, if you just Google it, and it's called Maybe, Maybe. And it's just a 2-minute little, YouTube thing. It's kind of a cartoon thing. But one of the things they talked about was, these series of things happened to this dad, and people go, oh, that's terrible, that happened. And he goes, maybe. And then that ended up producing something good. And then they go, oh, that's great. And you can see him kind of clapping, and he goes, maybe. And then something else. And he just went through this little 5 or 6 things. But the point of it is instead of just labeling it, he was just content with it just is. And so that way it allows our minds to think through things and to pivot, because it's not just bad, it just is. And there's a lot of things all of us around the world have had to accept, but a lot of it has actually been amazing and awesome. And some of it has been tough, but it just is. And so that gives us responsibility to take for ourselves that, we need to just pay attention to what's happening and pivot.
I just thought of something as you said that. The expression, it is what it is, which is, I know not what you're saying, but the expression,
it just is.
It just is. The expression, it is what it is, in my mind, always has a negative connotation. It's basically this passive-aggressive way of saying, well, I guess I have to accept this.
Yeah, I can't do anything.
I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
There is never a positive vibe or a smile or a good feeling that goes with it is what it is. But it just is. Think about just switching a couple of words there. It just is a totally different meaning. I think that's really fascinating. It's a good mindset to have. Oh, it is what it is. I'm out of work. I'm at home. I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
No, it just is. This is the way it is right now. And then to me, the next step, you don't say it is what it is. Well, what am I going to do now? It is what it is, but it just is this. So what are we going to do about it right now? So my question, in terms of your clients, in terms of sales, you spend your life training people every single day. What is different today? I know a lot's the same. I mean, foundation and so much of what is important to who we are should still stay the same. It has to stay the same, I think. What's different in your world, what you're teaching or messaging and strategies versus, say, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, well, a couple things. One is you really get to know someone when there's trials. And even when I say this is, it is, that doesn't mean there's not a trial. It's just I'm not labeling it as something. I'm not limiting it to just that. But one thing, unfortunately, not everybody is staying the same. Because when something like this happens, if we can, or subconsciously we start to react. Those are what we call automatic thoughts. But then there's the conscious part. And so what the conscious part is, what's happening to me right now? Is it going to make me better or bitter? And that's where the choice comes in. My automatic thoughts, I don't have control over. We all have them. They're just different. We didn't all have the same parents, life experiences, and all that. So they're just different. But that part, I've been calling that ultra ego, that person that I don't like, my automatic thoughts is Jerry. And when Jerry starts yapping, I go, Jerry, not today. I mean, I'm just kind of done with you right now, not today. And so, and these are my own thoughts. And I just this week, it was hilarious. When I was talking to a woman, she goes, oh, mine's Eleanor. I'm like, where'd Eleanor come from? But it's just, it's that thought process that maybe in some ways protects us, that we do need to think through things. But we got to decide, what are we going to feed? Are we going to feed, just protect, and buy, cases upon cases of toilet paper? Or are we going to say, that this creates an opportunity and this could be really freeing for me? And so what I've learned is that, back to the pause, is that there are some people, even clients, that I'm looking at them differently now. It's not as positive as it was. That doesn't mean I'm, but it's just like, okay, I got some clarity. Because when things are going well, you always get the, the front side of the person, whatever it says. When things aren't going well, you get to see what's on the back. And so, and then having said that, there are other people that I frankly just didn't know that well that have become starting to work with me, that I'm starting to see, wow, these people really got it going on. I had no idea just how they're responding to this. So there's things like that, but it's really, I would never say business as usual, but I would say 85% of what we're training is the same. It's just that 15%. And, there's some attitudinal changes we need to make. There's some behavioral changes we need to make. And there's some techniques that need to be changed because otherwise it just seems like you don't even know this thing's going on. You're pretending it doesn't exist.
All right. So let's hit those three elements: attitude, technique,
behavior.
And behavior.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a preference of where you want to start, but I would ask you this: in terms of behavior, and maybe we could differentiate between behavior and attitude. My question to you in terms of behavior, can you change? I know you can't change who you are. You could try. It's not going to be authentic if you're not true to yourself. Can you change behaviors?
Well, behavior is the one that we do have more control over than sometimes we believe we do. And back to the automatic thoughts, if when I get under stress, I start to, bite my fingernails, that's a behavioral issue. But, people can stop doing that. They have to reframe, redirect, so it can be. But if someone doesn't want to change, yeah, we're wasting our time. And so that's one of the things I'm always looking for before I work with someone is, if they think the world needs to change and they're wondering how I can help them get them to change, we can save ourselves a lot of time and energy and just shut her down right now, because that's not what it's about. It's about that, why there must be a reason why that bothers you like it does. Well, everybody's bothered by that. No, they're not. They're just not. So by continuing to say that, you are just basically saying it is what it is. I just can't do anything about it. No, it is. That's not true. Because you could have three people observe the exact same situation at the exact same time and walk away with completely different feelings about what just went down. So to generalize everybody, that's always a sign of not taking responsibility. Now, if I said, I don't know why, but that bothers me a lot and I don't know what to do with that, can you help me? I'm there for you. But if you're like, how do I get this person to change? I'm like, you can't. So, and they're probably not bothered by this like you are. So why would they change? Because I want them to. Well, good for you, but that's just not how the world works.
Yeah.
So those are examples of things that, doing things a little differently or maybe saying something differently when you're triggered. And this happens in sales all the time. Prospects can trigger salespeople like so quick, and it's fun for them sometimes. And so, but the reality of it is it's a trigger. It doesn't really mean anything. So those are examples of things that, if we realize how we're contributing to things, then that's where transformation can start to take place.
Okay, so you can make changes there. What about in your attitude? I like, again, for me, if most of the time, and people know me, I think, I hope they know this, most of the time I really am a positive, upbeat, high energy, glasses half full. You know that. I'll have my moments, and we all do. That's some of those thoughts that you're talking about. I haven't named my guy yet, but I sort of view it as like it's that guy sitting on the other shoulder that you're trying
like
to just like
the devil and the angel or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent, if that's a good visual for you, that's fair. So my devil's Jerry.
Yeah, like, hey Jerry, get out of here, and that, if you can do that within a matter of minutes, you're really ahead of the game. For some people,
well, and just recognizing it, because a lot of times these thoughts, they come in and they're usually when you're kind of doing something you don't have to really think about, which is why, they really do say, not having anything to do is the devil's playground, because it just allows those things to go. And that's why, you being busy and investing and giving back, there's just so many things about that even though they may not have appeared to pay off, like maybe, I mean, not that you're doing it for that, but you're like, I wonder if this is working. In about 6 months, you'll know it worked. And I don't know how or what or where, but you'll go, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So that's just kind of, and I just say in general, the worry and faith have the same thing in common, and they're both believing in something that hasn't happened yet. And worry just doesn't support me. Faith does. And they're both believing in something that hasn't happened yet. And so the reality is, how do we stay in the present? And how do we just observe, where are we today? Now, this pandemic changed faster. I'm in my mid 50s and I've never experienced anything like this. Of course, I said that about 08 and 09 too, but it's true. But it was changing so quickly, it made it harder to stay in the present. But on the other hand, it was pretty much every 2 days, something changed. That's not too bad, not every hour. So the point of this is just to be, what do I know right now and what am I going to act upon? That's one of the things we've been talking to our clients about.
I can tell you that being this busy for me it's not so much it's a distraction. It's given me some routine. It's given me purpose. It's allowed me to wake up every day at a time where so many of us are saying this feels like Groundhog's Day, and it does. But it allowed me to sit there and look at my calendar and say, oh, I got this, and this today. And for me, even personally, to automate some of that and using a calendar app and booking the podcast and doing that suddenly relieved some of the burden, but it allowed me to be productive. I know that that's true for a lot of those automated things, but suddenly I'm looking down, I'm like, wow, I got a lot of stuff mapped out here. This is good. It's not waking up. I'm saving my weekends for that. Tie up some loose ends on the weekend, but otherwise just try to shut it down. Don't look into a camera on the weekends. And we're all looking into cameras, by the way, right now. We're all looking into that little dot on our computer, and that can wear you out, staring into that. It really does. And so I get it. This, in my world, I'm used to looking into a camera. That camera's this big, and you're not just staring into that light.
And you have people around.
And you have people around
yourself.
And you have commercial breaks, and you have on and on and on. And now this is like, you got to be on. So it's a different world. It's interesting to me. I wasn't planning on going here, but it just dawned on me this morning. And I'll truly say I've never been busier since my first job in TV, when I made no money and you just worked and worked and worked because you didn't know any better and you were hungry. And I almost feel like it's going back to that. The money is not there right now, but the work ethic, the purpose, all that is, I'm hungry. But I've been overwhelmed for about a month, only in a way of the nonstop, like 8:30 in the morning till 5:30, 6 at night, boom, 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 on. And for whatever reason, this week, I feel like the pace has been more manageable, almost like there's been an adjustment to it. And so I mentioned that because that was a revelation that I had this morning. Like, you know what? I just feel like I'm a little bit more calm, just as upbeat. So how much are people's routines changing? Or you talk about technique. How much of an adjustment has that been in changing that technique?
So yeah, a couple of things on that, and I really appreciate you bringing it up. I'm glad you went there because I hadn't planned to talk about this either. But one of the things that's really important is for people to get into like a rhythm. I mean, we could say routine, but routine kind of sounds like I'm not necessarily my sweet spot. It's just routine. So I like the word
Mhm.
rhythm. And so where I'm going with that is if someone's exercised before, even if you exercise a lot, and I ask this question a lot, and it's usually around the same amount. I said, they go, "Hey, I run 4 miles when I run." I go, "That's awesome." So when you get going, how long does it take you before you kind of just get in your rhythm? And normally most people say about a mile, or somewhere a few minutes. And so the point of this is even though they do it a lot, it's routine for them, it still takes them a while to get into the rhythm. And the rhythm is when your body and or whatever you're doing is being efficient. And it's not just routine, it's where you kind of get your stride or you get your pace or whatever. And so what I'm hearing you say is that, it took a little while because it was
Mhm.
such a control alt delete, in terms of your
Mhm.
schedule, but you had to get your rhythm. And so one of the things that I don't like the idea of you can't prospect right now is you're going to get in the rhythm of not prospecting. And again, it isn't about selling people. It's never been about selling people. I know they call us salespeople, but it's really about helping people get what they need and want. And if you're not that person, you need to help yourself extricate away from that and go find someone who cares because someone does care. I guarantee it. And so those are things that I think are really important is to, and now what's happening is, if you've got, which I know you don't, but if you had like a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old at home and your wife was home and you're all trying to do this, that rhythm is going to be disrupted. But
Mhm.
what's important is where you can get that time where you can get into a rhythm. So I know some people are getting up earlier than they normally do, and they're going to bed earlier because they have small children. And if one, there's always an early riser every time, right? So
Mhm.
then they're like, yeah, I got to get up at 4 to have an hour to myself. But the good news is this kid goes to bed at 7:30.
Mhm.
So I would either depending on your type, who you are, I would get up an hour earlier to have that time to focus,
Mhm.
or maybe you'd stay up an hour later. But I mean, I think we've become so soft. I mean, my God, you would think that there was war on us, and there is an invisible war, but it's, I mean, most of us are in the comfort of our homes and we've got all this. I mean, come on, let's just
Perspective.
perspective. That was one of your P's,
Yep.
perspective.
Yep.
This is not, I mean, it could, as anything, could be a lot worse, but we just got to, it just is. So, and some people are finding that, gosh, I've always wanted to get up an hour early and now I've been able to do it because I don't have to commute. And it's amazing to me. Amazing. So these are things that just kind of opportunities during the pause, not that we're not doing anything, but to just decide, make some of those changes you've been considering because you're already disrupted. So why not disrupt yourself a little more and learn something?
I've never been a morning person, and being, a guy that does the baseball schedule, we tend to go to work at, 3 o'clock on a lot of days,
Yeah.
but at least during the season. Off season, different. I'm going for
Well,
coffees at 8, 9 in the morning. But what I have found is almost a piece. I've tried to set an alarm, but I wake up before it. And so as a guy that, and I don't sleep late anymore anyway, but suddenly I find myself up at 6:45 ish or so in the morning, and my house is sleeping. Even the dogs are still sleeping. And once I kind of get going, and even before that coffee, I just start either working on some emails
mhm.
or, mapping out some things. And then by the time I go to that first virtual coffee at 8:30, some mornings it's 8:39, I feel like I've already accomplished a lot. And
Yeah,
and
you're
I've
like,
done it in a way. Yeah.
was it the Army or the Navy? I can't remember. When I was little, it said,
Oh,
we get more
before.
done by 9
Yeah.
a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hesitate to say which one it was. I don't remember, but I remember that
I don't
exact
either. But it was armed
ad.
forces. I do know that.
It was armed forces, but when you start trying to say which one, if you get it wrong, you will hear from the other one because
Oh
there's,
yeah. Yeah, I've
I
already
got,
done a no.
yeah, I've got plenty of friends in that. So as we
Yes,
as we wrap things up,
sure.
what are your biggest takeaways right now in the sales world? And we've kind of talked about some of the pivots.
Hmm.
What does it look like when all of this calms down?
Yeah, well, I think the technique I'm going to give you guys is something you can use indefinitely, but definitely now is, and there's a couple of them. One is, to just when you get someone on the phone, whether you know them or not, and say, hey, before I get started, this is really crazy times, isn't it? and just see how they respond, because that's the most quick way. And they go, oh my gosh, yeah. So they go, well, yeah, but it's been kind of good, or, it's not so bad. And what we do is we start to get in, and this is sales 101, is you want to meet the person where they are. And so if I'm calling on, hospitality, because that's one of my markets, oh, they're all going to be so depressed, probably more than not, because of that industry's been hit so hard. But some of them might be finding, like I said, the 20%ers, they're finding things, and they may need things they didn't need 6 weeks ago. Or you can just be a little more, we call it mind reading out loud. Just say, hey, before I share with you what I do, I'm talking to a lot of people. So that doesn't make them feel like I'm just calling them and they're the only one. And they're telling me some are, a little better off, some are about the same, and some have really been hurt by this. Where are you? And that just allows the person to talk. But what we don't need to say is, how are you? That's never been a good idea in sales. How are you today? That's like, okay, this is a telemarketer salesperson. But just being more focused on business, if you're doing business to business, and if it's consumer, you might want to relate it to whatever it is that you do, that is, as opposed to just find how are you? Because I know you really don't care, and they actually don't care to tell you. So those are just some little techniques, and I think that's going to be a good way to go, because not everybody's going to recover the same. And in fact, we don't even know what recovery is going to look like, largely. So what I would just say is just get in the habit of saying it, and then you don't have to worry about changing it up in 6 months or 3 months or 2 weeks or whatever. But those would be some things I would say, just to kind of get a sense of, where are they before I start yapping about what we do.
You reminded me, as you said that, of a mistake I used to make on a regular basis until I just stopped, because it stopped being habit. In my younger years of broadcasting on TV, I spent a lot of years working in St. Louis. Tony La Russa, the Hall of Famer, was the manager, and Tony could be a really engaging guy, but when he was locked in, which was basically every day leading up to the end of the game, I was just trying to be nice. I'd get to the stadium, at 3 o'clock or whatever. I'd see him. Hey, Tony, how you doing? Ask me tonight in 7 hours. Ask me tonight at 10 o'clock. Never good, bad, indifferent. Ask me tonight after the game. And it was like, did I really care how he was doing anyway? I cared, but what did it do for the conversation? Right. Yeah. It wasn't I just saw, as you said that, because you don't always know what you're walking into.
You don't.
And whether that was like the end, that was like, okay, we're done, or you don't know what you're going to get. And a lot of people are going through things. I've noticed that. I've been on a lot of hospital visits with a lot of athletes over the years, usually visiting kids. You can't walk in and say, how are you?
Yeah.
And, these are kids that are struggling, but you can engage. There is a way to engage to get them talking. And we'll wrap it up with this. I mean, isn't sales really life anyway? I mean, or maybe life is sales. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's one of both. Sometimes just, saying, what's the good word today? Because it breaks the pattern of fine. Now, fine could be the good word today, but then I could say, how so? Well, I'm having one heck of it, whatever. But, normally when people ask those questions, you get the standard, like nothing was really, neither one of us really learned anything, but just something that's more, that there's something different, and that's why, how are you today is just never a good idea. That's telemarketer, everybody knows that, even if you're not. And so, but then they know you don't care. So it just starts off icky. But no, I would say just in general, I was going to say one other thing about, expanding how people think about things is we have this acronym called CARE, and it stands for, it's spelled K-A-R-E. And, K is for keep. And, obviously people need to be playing defensively with their clients as well, because, your best client is someone else's best prospect. And then the A part is attain, and that's why, it's always a good idea to attain, because you never know why somebody just isn't going to work with you anymore. They get bought, they go out of business. So that's another reason why it's important for us to be prospecting right now. But the last two are the ones I think sometimes people forget, and R is recapture. I've had several clients, and I've been doing this for 15 years. And so the cool part of that is I have people that come back to me, and some have come back 3 times over like a 12-year period. And that's a recapture. That doesn't necessarily mean that I did it. They just decided it was time to come back, or they switched jobs, or they were a salesperson before and they bought a company, or they started a company. And so I would say, this is a really good time to go back to anyone who's ever done work with you, because they are not the same people they were then, and their needs have changed. And then the last one is expand, and that's the same reasoning. They have to pivot, a lot of them, and then maybe what we do needs to pivot with them, and there might be opportunities to expand. And so I just thought that would just be a more holistic way of looking at, bringing in business. And really, I truly believe if I don't have these conversations with people, then I'm robbing them of the ability to say no.
Yeah.
That's all they got to do is say no.
Yeah.
I'm robbing them of the ability to say no.
Kare. If you want to get a hold of Dan, I've had his email up throughout the podcast here, so encourage you to do that. He does such a good job with Sandler training, and anytime I'm always over there, I learn. I did get a couple of shout outs, mutual friend and former guest of this podcast, so we'll just pop that up there, and a little hello from Father Justin.
Yeah,
and I feel good about this. He's more the master of this than me, but he mentioned the COVID beard, so I can't compete. I can't compete with Father Justin on that one. You want to talk about a guy though
before you, yeah,
well before me, but you want to talk. We'll wrap it up with this off subject, which is fine. Although really, he fits into all of this and everything you're talking about. I want to talk about a guy that makes an impact every day, has pivoted and keeps that energy up. I don't know anybody better than him.
Yes, amen to that. Yep, he's got a lot of purpose, and and there's a lot of passion in there, and and in just like a lot of us, his services at Reconciliation Services are needed even more now. So this is not the time to just say, oh, it's kind of tough out there, I'm not going to do anything. That just doesn't make sense on a lot of levels, but it makes sense to some people.
Definitely check Father Justin out. He was episode 5, I believe. About a month ago, and you're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome, Father Justin. He just sent thanks on there. I could keep popping up his messages all the time. So he just said, nice job, great listening. You continue to inspire, and that's what we're all trying to do. I hope at least that that is it. Just is for me right now. Not it is, or what was it? It is what it is. I can't work like that, and I know that you can't either. So it just is. And that to me has a positive connotation to it. It certainly can. So, Dan, I enjoyed this. I'm glad we had the opportunity, and thanks for spending the time. I think we've had it in the works for a few weeks. I guess the positive is that I'm a guy that kind of lives in the moment and fly by the seat of your pants and all of that. And now I'm booking 3 to 4 weeks out, which is cool. To me, it tells me, and this community, you've been here longer than I have, that this is a community that rallies around, cares, and is interested in helping each other out.
Absolutely. One of the blessings that's come out of this is I've gotten to know you better. You were one of the first persons I called when I decided we need to get back. And that was probably 5 weeks ago.
5 weeks ago. Yeah.
So, great minds think alike, and you attract those kinds of people. So I'm appreciative that I've been able to, attract more of you into my life. So thank you.
Likewise, and that's been part of my journey since I started the speaking business 3 years ago, is meeting people like you. And I can remember the first time I met, I'd never been doing that networking before, and it's amazing how all of that stuff kind of comes around, and what you build through all of this. Some of it you talked about in your Kare. So I'm grateful for the friendship, for your expertise, your advice, and for coming on today. And we'll do more. We'll there will be other things. Absolutely. All right, hang tight for 1 sec. That is Dan Stalp, and really appreciative of him joining today. Another buddy of mine in my network, Mike Meyer Music, just said, nice job, great listening. You continue to inspire. Mike Meyer is one of the most inspirational guys with his Band of Angels here in town too. That is going to do it for another episode. I truly cannot believe 29 episodes in. This is not anything I ever envisioned doing. It was my pivot to go from the weekly podcast, which still exists, to what can we do in the moment today? What can we do today that might help people, entertain people, advise people, inspire people? And so I'm loving every minute of this. You can certainly reach out to me on the website, joelgoldbergmedia.com. And I want to thank once again Casey Cattle Company for their support. Check them out, their website. If they're sold out of anything, my hint to you, I always hate to do this, but I'll do it. Tuesday morning is the best time. But just let me get my order in first. but they're awesome. So check them out. You can see their social media too, veteran owned and operated, and they will deliver up in Weston, Missouri. And a huge thanks to Enterprise Bank and Trust, hashtag no stopping you. I am back with another guest on Monday morning. It'll be an inspirational one. We'll leave it at that. I'll tease it as that. I hope you all have a safe weekend. Enjoy the start of your May, the beautiful weather outside, and thanks for watching Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust.